Now, Mick Mulvaney is being named as yet another cause for a departure from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, the federal official in charge of protecting student borrowers from predatory lending practices has stepped down, according to The Hill. This is a man by the name of Seth Frotman. Now, Seth Frotman, who until now was the student loan ombudsman at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And he had a few words to say about the stewardship of Mick Mulvaney. He said in a scathing resignation letter that the current leadership, i.e. Mulvaney, has, quote, turned its back on young people and their financial futures. Now, the letter obtained by NPR, Frogman accuses Mulvaney and the Trump administration of undermining the CFPB and its ability to protect student borrowers. He said, unfortunately, under your leadership, the Bureau has abandoned the very consumers it is tasked by Congress with protecting. So now, if they are no longer protecting students and they are no longer protecting borrowers, well then, who are they protecting? Well, Frotman says that instead you have used the Bureau to serve the wishes of the most powerful financial companies in America. Well, basically, hey man, they're serving the banks. Here we have an institution set up to not only go after the banks and make sure that they don't crash the economy again, like they did in 2008, but also to protect student borrowers, to protect some of the most vulnerable people from predatory lenders. Mulvaney comes in and upends that and says, yeah, that's a nice racket you've got going on. Now we're going to flip that and we're going to protect the banks. Now, Frotman had served as a student loan ombudsman for the past 3 years, so he actually knew what he was talking about. Now, as ombudsman, and assistant director, Frotman oversaw the CFPB's Office for Students and Young Consumers and reviewed thousands of complaints from student borrowers about the questionable practices of private lenders, loan services, and debt collectors. Now, some of those servicers I've had personal experience with, for example, Sallie Mae. Now, since 2011, to show you how effective and to show you just how much wrongdoing there is in the industry, the CFPB had handled more than 60,000 student loan complaints and, through its investigations and enforcement actions, returned more than $750 million to aggrieved borrowers. Frotman's office was central to those efforts. So over 60,000 complaints from student loan borrowers, right? That's since 2011. Since the agency was actually first started. Again, this is not an older agency. This is a new agency. And already tens of thousands of complaints from the student from student borrowers against these corporations. Gee, it kind of makes you think that maybe these corporations were doing some wrong. They were breaking some bad. And that they needed somebody to come in and police them and to regulate them so they don't screw over consumers. In comes the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, as in, hey, we're here to protect consumers. They got back $750 million. They were incredibly effective at protecting consumers. And Mulvaney says, nope. More. It also played a role in lawsuits against for-profit giants ITT Tech and Corinthian, which, by the way, ITT Tech, gone. I went there. Corinthian, gone. Both of these for-profit schools are gone because of actions taken by the federal government, because it turns out that these schools were nothing more than scams. And they would run scams in order to get student loan money, in order to pad their pockets. Not only that, but they also successfully sued the student loan company Navient for screwing over borrowers. But of course, that was under the Obama administration. Under Trump, and more specifically Mulvaney, the CFPB has been doing the opposite. So instead of going after these companies and basically being the sheriff, being the cops, they're instead joining the robbers. In fact, last August, the U.S. Department of Education announced that it would stop sharing information with the Bureau about the department's oversight of federal student loans, calling the CFPB overreaching and unaccountable, and arguing that the Bureau's actions were confusing borrowers and loan servicers alike. So that's, of course, under the Trump administration. That's under Betsy DeVos. It was like, well, we're not going to share information. Of that move, Frotman writes, the Bureau's current leadership folded to political pressure from DeVos and failed borrowers who depend on independent oversight to halt bad practices. Speaking of bad practices, in May, Mulvaney also called for a major shakeup of Frotman's divisions. The Office for Students and Young Consumers will be folded into the Bureau's Financial Education Office, signaling a symbolic shift in mission from investigation to information sharing. So basically, we're not going to investigate anymore. We'll share information here and there, but maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just sit on the information, like the Department of Education is doing. And overall, the actual result of this is going to be, we're going to sit on our hands. We're not going to investigate these student loan companies. We're not going to investigate these for-profit colleges. No, you guys are on your own. If you're a student borrower, good luck to you. We're not here to protect you anymore. We're here to protect them from you. So they're not going to go after the bad actors. And believe me, the industry is full of bad actors. Why do you think we needed this in the first place? As I said before, since 2011, over 60,000 complaints, netting $750 million in returns from that industry to people they have ripped off. That's money that they took out of their pockets, or out of your pockets, put it into their pockets, and the CFPB said, no, that's not your money. That's not your money. You're going to give it back. Now we don't have that anymore. And of course, the reason is Mulvaney works for the lenders, man. In fact, in his resignation, Frotman accuses the CFPB's leadership of suppressing a report prepared by his office, revealing new evidence that some of the nation's largest banks were, quote, saddling students with legally dubious account fees. Again, this is how they work. Fees on top of fees, hidden charges, etc., etc. Also, they can pad their pockets. That's what they do. That, look, you got to understand that these corporations are not looking out for your best interest. What they're looking out for is the interest of their shareholders. And so when the only focus is, how do I make more money? How do I squeeze people for more and more? Well, then you're going to come up with legally dubious ways of doing so. You're not going to care about the students. That's why we need an agency out there that looks after us. And the problem is that we have the head of the CFPB that now works for the banks. He's got a huge conflict of interest. But to Trump, you got to understand, to Trump and the Republicans, it's not a bug that he, got owed this money from payday lenders is one of the people they help, but also for-profit colleges and things like that. From all these financial institutions. It's not a bug. It's a feature. Working as intended. We put you there to destroy the agency, to dismantle it. And Mulvaney has delivered. Now, the Justice and Education departments had argued that the debt collectors should be protected from state efforts to regulate them. And earlier this month, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos moved to scrap a rule meant to punish schools where graduates struggle with poor earnings and deep debt. Now, this is something that the CFPB should be looking into and saying, oh, hold on there, guys. This is going to negatively impact students. Instead, Mulvaney shuts his mouth and lets them do whatever. And in fact, the department defended its decision, saying it would give borrowers school performance data so they can decide for themselves what colleges offer the best value. That's the Republican plan. Well, let's go ahead and we'll let them decide. We'll let them shop around for the best deal without doing anything like regulation to make sure that they don't have hidden fees in terms of service. That's what this is. So here's their plan, though. And I find it kind of ironic, but they want to make sure that all these financial decisions, these huge financial decisions, are put on 18 and 19-year-olds who just graduated high school. And they're going to make sure that the rules, when the banks are dealing with these people, or I should say when these people have to deal with the banks have everything stacked in their favor. I mean, look, student loans are a huge thing. I borrowed student loans when I was younger, right? And I'm sure a lot of you have as well. And had I known what I know now, I would never have taken out those loans. And it's because, look, I think when you're younger, a lot of people don't realize that the banks don't have the best interest in mind. We're always told that, no. They're here to serve the consumer. That's what capitalism is all about. It's so the consumer gets the best deal so that they'll come back and do business. That's called the free market. Well, that's not how it works now. It's not how it's ever worked. Businesses are for-profit making entities. They are legal fictions whose only job is to make as much profit as possible. And as I said before, if they screw you over and they make money from it, well, that's a win. That's a win. Look, we don't have an even playing field when it comes to finance. That's why we call these things predatory, because they take advantage of us. They prey on people. And isn't it pretty funny, as an aside, that where you have a political party who said things like, oh, we don't want people under 30 voting. We think young people are idiots. We're going to let them take out massive amounts of loans to go to school. Why is that? That's because banks take advantage of them. And the banks right now own the politicians on both sides. And through Mulvaney, they've managed to take the cops off the street. And now we have the robbers that make all the rules. Frotman, he was one of those cops, and now he's saying it basically as it is, right? The CFPB is now being run by crooks. And sadly, we now have no one in the government who will protect us from these banks. And until Republicans and corporate Democrats are out of office, that unfortunately will not change. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.